Hello again. In this video I want to look at an old claim I've been familiar with for many years, which could be said to be a folk myth or urban legend. As a child I read a book called Chance, Luck and Destiny, which at the time I found a fascinating read and was in places my first introduction to scepticism, even though some of the claims in the later parts of the book are perhaps more questionable. The book was the first time I'd seen a list of supposedly impressive coincidences between the lives and deaths of Presidents Lincoln and Kennedy. Other versions of this list also exist, and most contain a mix of true and false claims, but here are a few of the entries as commonly seen, which do at least stand up to verification as true. Lincoln and Kennedy each have 7 letters. Both presidents were elected to Congress in years ending in 46, and later to the presidency in years ending in 60. Both assassins, John Wilkes Booth and Lee Harvey Oswald, are known by their 3 names, composed of 15 letters. Both of the president's successors were Democrats named Johnson, and with 6-letter first names and born in 08. Both presidents were shot in the head and in the presence of their wives. Both died on a Friday. Both Oswald and Booth were killed before they could be put on trial. Both Lincoln and Kennedy were particularly concerned with civil rights and made their views strongly known. The last of these is arguably misleading since, as the Snopes article on the topic points out, urgent developments concerning civil rights were events that both presidents were forced to deal with, rather than particular interests of either of them. A better final entry, I think, if I were writing the list, would be to say that both men are remembered for dealing with crises that threatened the future of the nation, and for poetic, superbly crafted speeches, the Gettysburg Address for Lincoln and the American University speech for Kennedy. Other lists are padded with factually dubious entries which I shall not refer to at length here. The point is, even if the list of coincidences consists of true claims, does this mean anything important? If you've followed this channel for the last 8 months, you may see where this is going.
That really you can pick up those patterns, and as an analyst that's what you try and find, it's patterns.
All the entries in the presidential list read like exercises in data dredging, also known more formally as p-hacking. Another way to look at it is counting the hits and ignoring the misses, specifically from the point of view of asking, how likely is this to be just a coincidence, or is it something more meaningful? The idea behind the p-number, the number amenable to hacking, is that it's a measure of how surprising your result is, lower being more surprising. Its formal definition is that it's the chance of finding a result as impressive as yours, by mere chance alone, with no real effect behind it. No real effect is also called the null hypothesis. If my positive hypothesis is that I can predict coin tosses, the null hypothesis is that I can't, and only get it right sometimes by luck. If I happen to guess 4 right out of 4, it is a relatively unimpressive p-value of 6%, not really a miracle. If I only get 4 out of 5, it's not impressive at all, at 19%. If I select which 4 out of 5 to use from a bigger set, it's both unimpressive and p-hacked, or in more colloquial terms, faked. In more complex systems, you also have to take into account all potential results as surprising as the one you happen to get. In an earlier video I touched on the idea that everything seems quite unlikely if you haven't predicted it in advance. The chances of the next house having a blue door are fairly low, and the chances of the next car being green are similarly fairly low. But the chance of getting a result of equal surprise value is essentially 100%. P-hacking occurs when you note that the colour of the next car you see is in fact white, and the one after it red, which together make the international alphabet flag for H, which is the first initial of one of my half-brothers. What are the odds? The Lincoln-Kennedy coincidences are of this form. Their surnames have 7 letters, but their first names have different numbers of letters. They were both elected 100 years apart, but they were born 108 years apart and died 98 years apart. Lincoln died on the 15th of April and Kennedy on the 22nd of November, the very day before the first episode of Doctor Who. They were both shot on a Friday, but Kennedy died on a Friday and Lincoln on a Saturday. Oswald and Booth have different numbers of letters in their surnames. Booth was an actor and had a famous brother. Oswald was in the military and did not. Abraham Lincoln was born in Kentucky, and was elected a House member for Illinois. John F. Kennedy was born in Massachusetts and became a senator for Massachusetts. Just about the only independent coincidence between them is that they were both killed, but so were two other presidents. They did live around 100 years apart, but even the number 100 is an artificial construct of our counting system. Where I was going is that many of the alleged Letby coincidences are probably less impressive even than this. Let's compare the presidential coincidences list with the supposedly impressive circumstantial evidence against Lucy Letby that couldn't be mere chance. The judge claimed that these facts were significant. Alleged incidents concerning 5 babies occurred within a few minutes of their designated nurse leaving the room. 4 babies cried uncharacteristically at the time of their collapse. In 2 cases, a person was concerned, but the defendant reassured them. 4 babies recovered quickly when taken to other hospitals. Liz Hull gives a list of important days of alleged attacks: Father's Day, the baby's due date, or the date planned for going home. Father's Day only applied to 1 baby, and it comes round every year after all. No events were claimed to occur on Mother's Day. Perhaps no vulnerable babies were in the hospital that day in 2015 or 2016, perhaps. The due date and planned going home date are not independent variables. Like the 2 presidents living around a century apart, all the babies were born within a moderate and foreseeable time of both dates. Unimpressive as the presidential list is, what makes it even worse is that genuinely impressive coincidences do occur in the world. 2 bands from the 1980s have unrelated members named Roger Taylor. They're also both drummers. Just in the realm of Lincoln, a truly impressive coincidence is that his son, Robert Lincoln, was saved from falling to his death in 1864 by Edwin Booth, a famous actor, with whom Robert had a chance encounter, and brother of the man who would murder his father a year later. It still doesn't mean anything, though. You could never have worked backwards from that to identify John Wilkes Booth as a killer by reference to that incident. In conclusion, I think if it had been possible to prove Lucy Letby was a killer by some reliable means, then it might be interesting to look at this sort of thing to get an idea of her motivation. But the idea you can actually use lists of this type to prove that she is a killer is, once again, pseudoscience.